everyone to the Next Best Picture podcast, where we are talking with Tilman Singer, the writer and director of Cuckoo. Tilman, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello, hello. Thanks for having me.
Very excited to be speaking with you about this film, Cuckoo. You've said that the beginning of the writing process for you is this feeling that certain clues in the world bring out of you, and that the first clues
Yeah,
for Cuckoo were the Alps and the way that cuckoo birds breed. So I'm
yeah,
curious what exactly those things sparked within you, and then how you shaped those into this film.
right. Well, I think it like a story um always starts based on a feeling that I have inside of me. And I'm not really aware it's there. And I can't even put like a certain like I can't really say oh it's just fear or anxiety or something. It's a mix, but it's a state of emotion that I am in at that moment. And then I look at concrete things in the world that sort of interest me, like how the way that cuckoo birds breed, and that brings out this feeling in a very strong way. And I was watching this documentary about the cuckoo bird, and I knew this from when I was a child. I'm German, so the cuckoo bird is kind of our bird. We have the clocks and everything, so we know what it does. It puts its eggs in the nests of other bird species and lets them raise their offspring. And what this ends up to be is that you have tiny host parents birds that feed a cuckoo chick that sits in a nest, and that chick grows bigger than the nest, bigger than the host parents, but they don't abandon the nest. They stick to it and just keep feeding it. And I saw this, and there was a beauty, almost like a hopefulness in this existential horror scenario. And it brought out this feeling. And I wasn't in the best state at that time. I was finishing the movie we did before called Loose, and we were mixing it. And I truly believe nobody will ever watch this movie. That was actually a student film back then, and I thought we were just making this for ourselves. And so I was kind of depressed, and I had like these panic attacks almost every day at some point. Um, just like intense pressure. Um, and so I was really receptive to this sort of horrific natural spectacle that I saw there, that I got reminded of, and that was sort of the building block to write the story on.
It's a really very fun, out there sort of way to look at, growing up and family
Yeah,
dynamics. I really, really enjoyed it. I wanted to talk to you about the casting process, about
yeah,
what attracted to you to Hunter Schafer and Dan Stevens as these diametrically opposed leads.
yeah. Well, Hunter, we cast way before we actually could shoot the movie because we had to push a bunch of times because of COVID. So I think I cast her 2 years before we actually shot the movie, and
Oh,
then we had
wow.
to wait. And she stayed excited about the movie for that amount of time, which speaks to how much she felt for the story. Um, and it was the classic thing, and that some I live sometimes under a rock. I haven't watched Euphoria. I didn't know about Hunter, but and I think at that time, I think maybe season one was out or just out or something. So popular, but I haven't seen it. So my manager recommended her to me. She was like on top of his creative top picks sort of for this story, and she stayed there. I checked out Euphoria. I was so impressed. Um, and it's always like this vague feeling. I can't really describe it. You can try to put it into words, but not really. Don't really can't. But you could sort of feel that a human, an actor, is just right for whatever it is you want to go for with a role. And I felt this, even not having spoken with Hunter yet. And then I talked to her, which was great. But it was just a video call or something, and because it was COVID times, we couldn't do a real sort of casting get together, try something out, because we had to like rely on tapes, and Hunter taped something for us that was incredible, actually. It in the taping scenario, it sucks for actors. You know, you have to tape yourself in a room. That's horrible. Judge yourself, then select a take and then send it. You know, nerve wracking. But but even in this unthankful scenario, she was so good and had such an obvious, deep connection to the role, that was just oozing out, you know. And I knew right then and there, like I made my decision then. um, And with Dan, completely different story. We had John Malkovich attached for a long time for this role. Then our
Oh,
schedules
wow.
didn't work out, and he
Mm.
couldn't do the movie anymore. And then that sort of spun into like a search for a different actor, and
Wow.
while we were in pre-production already, and then very like
Mhm.
not like I don't remember how many weeks, but it was like we were about to shoot basically. I
My
sat
gosh.
together with Dan via Zoom, and he was like, I don't think this character has to be like 60 plus. I think it can be my age. This has to be like symbolically grandfatherly, 60 plus years old.
Yeah.
And we really connected about like he was talking about a friend or an acquaintance. I don't really remember, but he described this German person to me that he really loves or likes, and they were a bit quirky and a bit esoteric, and the way they interact with people was very particular. And we had like just some really good laughs in that like initial meeting that we had. Really liked each other immediately from the get go, and I made a decision right then, to work together. It was very simple.
That's incredible. We could have gotten a very different movie had the
Oh yeah,
original casting worked out.
oh yeah, I know, I
That's
know. But that's
incredible.
the fun about making
Yeah.
movies. You always react to the reality of things, right? You have an idea, and then that idea has to fight reality, and then you have to course, not course correct. I don't know really how to say that. You just you go with it, and then the real world is sort of it's changing it
Yeah.
into that thing that it eventually becomes.
And along those lines, it looks like certainly you shot a lot of this film on location. And
Yeah, I love
Konig's
shooting
resort
on
is
location.
is it's a beautiful, beautiful setting.
Yeah.
How I'm curious of like what shooting on location, what was the craziest thing that happened? What was the worst day on set, and how did you overcome the obstacles?
I mean, the worst days on sets, they're not such fun stories. It's just when sometimes the schedule gets out of hand and I have to rush, and it's just so stressful, and I hate putting the actors through it, and just really like rushing. I hate that, but sometimes that happens. Um, but I think a good story is, for example, that we shot, and you're right, I love shooting on location. I love adjusting to a real place. I love what I get from the architecture, whether it's intentional or not. But places have auras, have vibes, have whatever you want to call it, and I love working with that. And that is a thing that also shapes the story, which I don't know before we didn't find our locations, right? I love that process. I love it when there's a column in the middle of a room and you kind of like it's kind of blocking your shot. So fuck, okay. So you have to kind of, I guess you have now a foreground with a column, but that's all very healthy. That's cool. Um, and so, but we shot in this beautiful house because I wanted a glass house for the family that they move into, like an aquarium where they're sort of, like animals in a zoo almost, right? And outside of the glass windows, there's nature everywhere. Um, and as we find out, sort of that the nature surrounding them is quite dangerous. Um, and But we shot in this glass house, an architecture named Richard Neutra built, and we had this incredible living room, and it was like just glass everywhere. You can see it in the movie. Super difficult to shoot it because there will always be like a C stand or light somewhere in a reflection. You know, you have like it's a nightmare for the lighting technician, the gaffer, and the cinematographer. But it's such a cool place, and it feels so meaningful. But we had this very long scene. It's the one where Gretchen wakes up, gets down, and Herr König is there, and it's this long scene there, and again, glass windows everywhere. So it's basically like shooting outside. And we had a summer thunderstorm going on, like the entire day. The
Oh
light changed every 5 minutes, and there was
gosh.
literal rain and thunder going on while we shot the scene with an open door, because the door had to be open, the glass door had to be open. And there's this moment, and you can still hear it in the mix. There's this moment where Dan is standing outside on the patio on the terrace, and he's looking like an evil wizard into the woods. And Gretchen asks him like why do we have to live here? What are we doing here? And he's sort of like he stands there with his flute and says like, because your family belongs here. And right that second, thunder outside. Like right, like you would never put that in a movie because it's way too cheesy. But right this
But
second, rumbling, you know, and that just it means like the universe has spoken. Like, all right, that's in a movie now. That's a take we're using.
the universe
And
said, "Go for it."
you know, and I love that. I love that stuff. That's what you get by shooting on locations and then having to struggle with the weather and everything.
There you go. And you know that
Yeah.
that's all the time we have, but I think that's a really great place to end it. The providence of nature shining down on you.
Yeah, there you
Tilman,
go.
Tilman, thank you so much again for joining us today.
Thanks, Danielle.